Holly Williams was born on January 14, 1987, in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Her childhood was fraught with challenges. Her parents divorced when she was young, and her relationship with her mother deteriorated over time. Although she briefly lived with her stepmother, that period was also marked by significant struggles. Despite these hardships, Holly never gave up on her dreams. She moved to Nashville and began building a career as an esthetician, determined to create a new life for herself. Warm and sociable, Holly had a knack for connecting with people, always extending kindness and believing in the goodness of others. In 2008, at the age of 18, Holly attended a music festival where she met Bill Lanway, a mechanic. The two were instantly drawn to each other, enjoying the nightlife and often spending their evenings dancing and having fun in local bars. However, their bond wasn't built solely on shared moments of joy. Bill, too, carried the scars of a troubled childhood. Bill Lanway was born on March 17, 1983, in a small town. His early years were overshadowed by a traumatic event that affected his family. When he was just 3.5 years old, an argument between his parents spiraled out of control, culminating in his father holding the entire family hostage for hours. Thankfully, no one was hurt that night, and his father was taken into custody and sent to a psychiatric facility. However, the nightmare didn't end there. Just a week later, his father was granted temporary leave to visit the family for Thanksgiving. This decision proved disastrous. Upon returning home, he fatally stabbed Bill's mother in front of the children. As Bill and his sister fled to a neighbor's house in terror, their father attacked another neighbor before being subdued by the police. This time, he was sentenced to life in prison. Orphaned by this tragedy, Bill and his sister were raised by their aunt and uncle. Despite the trauma, Bill grew up to be outgoing and fun-loving, choosing to embrace life rather than retreat into despair. In his 20s, Bill hosted a house party where he met Dana Jones, a young woman 4 years his junior. Despite their age difference, they hit it off immediately. However, there was a complication. Dana was underage at the time. 6 months into their relationship, Dana discovered she was pregnant, and the couple decided to start a family. They welcomed a daughter, Madison, and for a while, Bill looked forward to a brighter future. Yet, life seemed to have other plans in store for them. When Madison was just 4 years old, she began experiencing flu-like symptoms that lingered for weeks without any improvement. Concerned, Bill and Dana took her to the emergency room, where doctors delivered a devastating diagnosis. Madison had an aggressive and rare form of brain cancer. For a year, the family endured a grueling regimen of treatments and meditations. At first, there were signs of hope as Madison began to show progress, but that hope was tragically short-lived. On September 21, 2011, Madison lost her battle with cancer, shattering her family. After Madison's death, Bill's life took a drastic turn. Once outgoing and lively, he withdrew into himself, becoming a shadow of his former self. Over time, his behavior grew increasingly angry and volatile, leaving Dana in a difficult position. Eventually, she made the painful decision to end their relationship, returning the gifts he had given her and asking him not to contact her again. Following the breakup, Bill became even more reclusive. He stopped engaging with others and abandoned any semblance of a routine. The only way his friends could coax him out of the house was by dragging him to parties. Determined to help him rediscover his former self, they included him in social gatherings, hoping the energy of the crowd might spark something within him. It was during one of these outings that Bill met Holly Williams. At the time, Bill was still grappling with the emotional wreckage of his past and struggling to find stability. Despite his unresolved trauma, he and Holly began a relationship. Holly, fighting her own demons, was quick to trust others, making her susceptible to their connection. Initially, their relationship seemed to progress without major issues. However, by early 2018, cracks began to appear. They started breaking up and reconciling repeatedly, and their dynamic grew increasingly tumultuous. Friends of the couple described their relationship as toxic. Holly, on multiple occasions, confided in friends about her fears regarding Bill and expressed concern that he might harm her. In December 2019, Bill smashed the windshield of Holly's car and punched her in the face. A friend called the police, which led to Bill's arrest. However, Holly refused to press charges, insisting that she could handle the situation herself. She was terrified of how Bill might react if legal action escalated the conflict. Holly's fear was not unfounded. Police interventions in domestic disputes can sometimes provoke even more threatening behavior from the abuser. She made her decision based on that risk. Then, in March 2020, during another heated argument, Bill attempted to strangle Holly. She managed to escape and, finally determined to protect herself, reported the incident to the authorities. Bill was charged with aggravated assault, but his release on bail shortly afterward only deepened Holly's fears. Just days later, on March 13, 2020, a construction worker called 911 to report a car that had veered off the road and crashed into a tree. The vehicle was completely wrecked. According to the worker, a man and a woman were inside the car, both motionless and seemingly lifeless. When the police arrived at the scene, they identified the victims as Bill and Holly. Bill's body was found crumpled on the floor of the front passenger seat, while Holly's was in the back seat. What initially appeared to be a car accident quickly turned suspicious upon closer examination. Both Bill and Holly had been shot multiple times, Bill twice in the head and Holly in the torso, head, and chest. The autopsy revealed that Holly had not died instantly. The gunshot wound to her chest left her alive for a short time before a fatal shot to her head ended her life. Investigators uncovered Holly's restraining order against Bill, which had been issued just 9 days before their deaths, along with records of prior domestic violence incidents. With these findings, the circumstances surrounding their deaths pointed to something far more sinister than a tragic accident. The police began piecing together a theory based on the available evidence. According to the police's initial theory, Bill shot Holly, who was seated in the back seat, before turning the gun on himself, resulting in him losing control of the car. The vehicle veered off the road and crashed into a tree. Holly's friends and family found this explanation plausible, considering Bill's recent erratic behavior and his violent tendencies toward her. However, certain details didn't align with this narrative, prompting detectives to examine the case more closely. The first inconsistency was the positioning of their bodies. Bill was found in the front passenger seat, while Holly was in the back seat, with the driver's seat conspicuously empty. While it was conceivable that Bill's body had been thrown into the passenger seat upon impact, this seemed unlikely given the physical evidence. Another troubling detail was the absence of their phones. Investigators speculated that Bill might have deliberately left his phone behind, intending to commit murder-suicide. However, Holly's missing phone was more puzzling, as she was known never to be without it. Adding to the mystery was the absence of the murder weapon, which significantly undermined the initial theory. A forensic examination of the car revealed even more unsettling clues. The shattered windows showed signs of tampering, as there were no glass fragments at the crash site, an anomaly suggesting that the scene had been staged. These findings led investigators to propose a new theory, that the couple had been murdered and that the scene was deliberately arranged to look like an accident. The investigation then turned toward the couple's social circle. Detectives interviewed their friends, but no one could identify any known enemies who might wish them harm. However, a breakthrough came when Holly's family revealed that she had recently installed a security camera at her home. Following her last violent altercation with Bill, Holly had taken precautions by adding a reinforced lock and a camera to protect herself. When detectives reviewed the security footage, they uncovered disturbing evidence. In one clip, Bill was seen bypassing the electronic lock and entering Holly's home, wandering around as if searching for her. Fortunately, Holly wasn't home at the time. In other clips, several unidentified men were seen approaching the house, ringing the doorbell, and calling out to Holly. Strangely, they made efforts to conceal their faces from the camera. These anomalies suggested a deeper, more complex motive behind the couple's deaths, one that might involve individuals beyond just Bill and Holly. Detectives shifted their focus, determined to uncover the truth hidden within these chilling details. On March 10, 3 men dressed in black and covering their faces approached Holly's house. They called out to her, claiming they just wanted to talk. Holly, who was home at the time, had no intention of engaging with them. After lingering outside for a while, the men left empty-handed. Despite their efforts to conceal their identities, the camera captured a partial glimpse of one man's face. Detectives released the footage to the public, hoping someone might recognize the men. Unfortunately, no leads emerged. With no responses from the public, the investigation shifted to Holly's personal life in search of clues about the identities of the men. This line of inquiry soon revealed a startling truth. Holly wasn't just an esthetician. She had also been working as a sex worker since the age of 18, a fact known to several of her close friends. Although Holly primarily operated in Nashville, her work often took her beyond the city limits. This line of work had significantly improved her financial situation in recent years, prompting detectives to examine her client list for potential suspects. Their efforts led them to several intriguing leads, including one particularly persistent individual. This client, listed in Holly's phone under the name Jimmy Green, had sent her a flurry of messages in the days leading up to her death. The communication wasn't limited to one device. Jimmy had messaged her on both her personal phone and the one she used for work, suggesting a degree of familiarity and insistence. Tracing the number associated with Jimmy Green revealed that it had been created using Pinger, a messaging app that allows users to generate temporary phone numbers, masking their real ones. Detectives obtained a court order to access records from Pinger, hoping to uncover the person behind the alias. However, this too led to a dead end. The account had been registered with a disposable email address, and Jimmy Green appeared to be nothing more than a pseudonym. The lack of concrete information left investigators in a frustrating impasse, though the discovery of Jimmy's communications suggested a deeper connection to the events surrounding Holly's death. When the police failed to uncover Jimmy's true identity, they decided to take a different approach by tracking the IP address associated with his phone number. Partnering with several telecommunications companies, they managed to link the IP address to a phone registered to a man named Adam Carey. Strikingly, Adam resembled one of the individuals seen in Holly's security camera footage. This discovery marked a pivotal breakthrough. Detectives now needed to answer a critical question: why would Adam Carey want to harm Holly? As they delved into his background, they learned that Adam had a military history and was currently employed in private security. During their investigation, they came across another individual that piqued their interest: Brian Brockway. Like Adam, Brian also worked in private security, specializing in high-stakes assignments for government officials and other high-profile clients. On March 9, 2020, just days before Bill and Holly's deaths, Adam sent Brian a file labeled Tennessee Situation Report. Investigators suspected that the file contained details related to the murders, but the connection between Holly, Bill, and these men remained unclear. Despite the absence of a direct link, it was evident that both Adam and Brian had been monitoring the couple. Further investigation revealed that Adam and Brian were operating under the direction of a man named Gilad, who in turn reported to someone identified as Eric. After piecing together their findings, the police finally unearthed a crucial connection. Holly had a history with Eric. Eric was a gallery owner who had hired Holly as a sex worker on multiple occasions, always using an alias to conceal his true identity. This revelation provided a motive and connected Eric to the events, but it raised a pressing question: why would Eric, through Adam and Brian, orchestrate such a violent end for Holly and Bill? Detectives pressed forward, determined to uncover the full extent of the conspiracy. Roughly a month before the murders, on February 3, 2020, Eric emailed Holly to let her know he would be visiting Nashville for a few days. Shortly after Eric's visit, Bill secretly accessed Holly's work account and gathered information about her clients. He then contacted Eric, threatening to expose his relationship with Holly unless he was paid. For Eric, a married man with a respected social standing, such a revelation would have been disastrous. Instead of yielding to Bill's demands, Eric decided to take decisive action. He reached out to private security contractor Gilad, who enlisted Brian to help devise a plan. Adam and Brian were the men captured on Holly's security footage as they attempted to confront her at her home. The exact sequence of events that followed remains unclear, but the security cameras showed Holly and Bill leaving the house together around 11 p.m. Despite their recent conflicts and the restraining order, the couple was still spending time together, seemingly planning to go out for the evening. Minutes after they left, the camera recorded the sounds of gunshots and shouts. Strangely, these sounds weren't heard by any neighbors, but they were captured by Holly's security system. With this new evidence, police constructed a revised theory. Adam and Brian ambushed the couple as soon as they left the house, targeting Bill first in the parking area and fatally shooting him, as he was the source of the blackmail threat. However, Holly, likely caught in the chaos, was accidentally shot in the chest. Realizing they now had two bodies to deal with, Adam and Brian moved the victims to their car and drove to the crash site. Upon arrival, they discovered that Holly was still alive, so they shot her in the head to ensure there were no witnesses left behind. They staged the scene to look like a car accident and fled. After the murders, Adam and Brian traveled to Memphis, Tennessee. There, Adam dropped Brian off at the airport, and Brian flew to Austin, Texas. Adam, on the other hand, returned to North Carolina and reported to their employer, Gilad, that the plan had been executed successfully. The investigation took a significant turn when the FBI became involved, focusing on Eric's financial records. Their analysis revealed that Eric had paid a total of approximately $1 million to Gilad, Adam, and Brian for their roles in the crime. This financial trail provided crucial evidence linking Eric to the murders and solidified the case against all the involved parties. As the investigation unfolded, detectives encountered increasingly complex leads, extending the process to nearly 2 years. To charge everyone involved, including Eric, they needed a confession that proved the murders were premeditated. Moreover, they had to ensure that none of the suspects, including Adam, Brian, or Gilad, fled the country. To gather critical evidence, the police approached Brian's brother, Chad. They detailed the case to him, and he agreed to collaborate with them. Taking on an undercover role, Chad devised a plan to extract information. He contacted Adam, pretending to request his services for another murder. Remaining composed, Adam responded that he could procure the necessary equipment and carry out the task for $60,000. This not only demonstrated Adam's willingness to kill for money, but also underscored his familiarity with such operations. Chad arranged a meeting between Adam and Brian at a downtown restaurant, where he secretly wore a wire. During their conversation, Chad pressed Brian about Eric, Holly, and Bill. Brian revealed that Bill had resisted their plans, forcing them to kill him. This confession, captured on tape, provided vital evidence. On December 10, 2021, the police executed simultaneous arrests of Brian, Adam, and Gilad. However, they needed additional time to apprehend Eric, as concrete evidence directly implicating him was still lacking. While the 3 suspects were in custody, detectives offered Gilad a deal. If he testified against Eric, his sentence could be reduced. Gilad agreed and called Eric under police surveillance, claiming that Adam was demanding more money. Eric, unaware that it was a trap, responded, "I'll pay Adam $225,000. He did a good job for me, and I'm grateful. But I need him to stay out of sight for the next 6 months. I'll spend more on him if I have to, just like last time." This incriminating statement became the final piece of evidence the police needed. A team was dispatched to arrest Eric, completing the sweep of all suspects. It took nearly a year for Eric, Adam, and Brian to face a jury, with their trials beginning in November 2023. During the proceedings, Gilad testified about the true scope of the plan. Initially, the idea was merely to abduct Bill and Holly and intimidate them. However, Brian suggested killing them, a proposal that Eric immediately endorsed. After a 2-week trial, the jury found Adam and Brian guilty of murder and conspiracy to commit kidnapping. Eric was convicted of hiring hitmen and conspiracy to commit kidnapping. All 3 received life sentences without the possibility of parole.
Before we conclude this video, please be aware that the video on the left may be disturbing. It is recommended for adult viewing only. On the right, you'll find a playlist of videos that have been highly appreciated by our viewers.